All righty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today, we've got a great video for you. We were talking about a recent commitment for OU. The Chosen 23 class is really starting to get rolling, and it's only the middle of June. And then we're going to be talking about a few other recruitments that are going to be relevant to how good of a summer that OU is going to be having. But before we get into it, we just want to say we really appreciate it. We hit 4,300 subscribers. It's been kind of a little bit of slow going. I know it's in the middle of summer, or I guess it's just the beginning of summer, but it's the middle of the off season. We're like 80 something days from some Sooner football. We're going to get rolling into it. If you hadn't already, hit the subscribe button. We've got a goal of 10,000 subscribers this year, so it's a lofty goal. And so help us out. Hit the subscribe button and turn that notification bell so you can know when we post. Generally, it's Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 9:30 Central, but sometimes days and times will vary, so that way you can stay up to date. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. Everything will be linked below. Our Twitter and our Facebook are really active as far as recruitments and commitments and everything else. So be sure to go check us out on there. And if you are watching or listening to us on Apple and Spotify, we have never asked, but we just thought about it. Leave us a review on there. Leave us a rating. Just an unbiased rating. We prefer 5-star, but we understand if, listening to me, you might want to give it like a 3-star. I get it. Or some of Brandon's takes might make it a 2-star. I don't know. So just give us an honest review. Let us know what you think. It helps us out. It'll help us grow our channel on that side. So more and more people that like OU football and OU athletics will be able to listen in on what we've got to say. Brandon, do you have something to say on that 2-star review?
Nah, man, I appreciate it. Pretty good.
Pretty good. It's
Only
better than one,
5-star
right?
reviews.
Only 5-star reviews. So if you hadn't done all that, help us out. Free. Everything's free that we're asking for, and it would really help. So we're going to talk about a guy that has been committed just a couple days ago at this point when you're listening to it. Cade McIntyre. McIntyre is a 6'4", 205-pound athlete. He's being recruited to Oklahoma as a tight end. He's a 3-star, number 791 overall, and number 70 athlete in the class. He has offers from like Nebraska, Minnesota, Kansas State, Iowa, Oklahoma, and a handful of others, Power 5 schools. And, I don't know if we've talked about him on here before, just because there's been so many other different guys, and he came up for the Champ U barbecue, and it seemed like it went really well. I actually take that back. I think it was after the Champ U barbecue, but I don't know. Either way, he's a recent visitor. He took his visit to Iowa this past weekend, and then basically Monday afternoon, Monday evening, he came out and announced his commitment to Oklahoma. And basically he said, he visited Iowa and it was great and all, but his heart was just in Oklahoma. So he's canceling his other trip. I know he's going to go to Kansas State. That's off the table. But, diving into his background a little bit, I thought it was pretty cool is he plays obviously in the state of Nebraska, which is back-to-back years now that OU's landed a kid from the Cornhusker State, which for the longest time, OU hasn't had a Nebraskan kid on the roster, which is, that's a good thing because they produce some great talent up there. But he plays at the lowest level of 11 on 11 high school play, which I found is interesting. And Brandon will talk about the stats a little bit more, but Cade played it seemed like every single position for Fremont, he's from Fremont. He plays for Archbishop Bergan High School. Brandon, what do you think about Cade McIntyre and the implications of him?
Yeah, you mentioned 6'4" athlete, and that's the key word because we were talking off record. The dude plays literally every sport he can in his high school. You mentioned that we've gone off before we started recording, 800 yards, receiving about 23 yards a catch, like 17 or 18 touchdowns as a tight end. But he's also got 63 solo tackles, 6 sacks, something like that as a junior. So, I mean, the numbers are there. He wrestles. He does basketball. He plays like every sport he can play. And I think winning a recruiting battle for a tight end against Iowa says something. Iowa makes some pretty damn good tight ends, and if you're a tight end, I think it'd be really easy to commit there, just for the long-term lookout for your own future as far as playing professionally and stuff like that. They know what they're doing in Iowa, and Iowa is another thing. It's the proximity game favors them, I would think, from Nebraska to Iowa versus Nebraska to Oklahoma. We talk about that in the show a lot too. It's a big get. I think it could be a lot of fun in a couple years, because I don't think, obviously he's not going to be in next year, but like Caden Helms and him running the tight end show, being both Nebraska boys playing tight end for Oklahoma is just kind of cool, because as you mentioned, we haven't got Nebraska kids in forever, and now it's back-to-back years, and they play the same position, which is a lot of fun. I think the fact that he wrestles and the fact that he also plays linebacker is going to help him out a tremendous amount when it comes to the run blocking aspect of his game. He's going to understand leverage and stuff, because as a linebacker, people are trying to block him. So he knows, how to shed blocks, get rid of them. So if he knows how to shed it and get rid of blocks, he's going to know how to make sure people do not shed his blocks or things of that nature. So, and the wrestling background will help tremendously with that too. Big get for Oklahoma, great size. I think a guy you can really develop into something special. Him and Caden Helms could be a fun duo for a long time to come.
Yeah, and I like how you brought up the situation with Iowa. I think that is bigger to me than getting someone from Nebraska. The fact that a tight end turned Iowa away is crazy, because they are a tight end factory. I think it's fair to call them tight end U, with just the amount of talent that they put into the NFL, and not just like decent talent, like some Hall of Famers at that position. So it's good that we're beating them out. I wonder how much his commitment came from Reed Mikeska not committing to Oklahoma. It seems like they're pretty similar tight ends, with the fact that, like Brandon mentioned, this guy played linebacker and was a wrestler in high school, so he understands leverage. He's willing to do the dirty work, and when it comes to playing tight end, but he's also a good receiver. They're just very much like Reed Mikeska. Mikeska, physical guy, and could catch the ball. They're very similar prospects. I think Reed was just being recruited a lot harder, so was going to be maybe a tougher guy to get fully committed. But who knows? Maybe it would have been a Cade and Reed duo, in this class, which would have been awesome. But I think Cade is going to be a really good tight end. It's going to be, I don't know how Caden Helms is actually going to hold up with this offense, just because Caden was much more of a receiving tight end. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because he's still big. He's got the size, but maybe he'll be molded to be more of a receiver rather than a tight end with this offense. Because if you compare Caden Helms to Cade McIntyre, very different. Just because Caden, at least at the high school level, wasn't as physical as the two tight ends that we were mainly recruiting in this class, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, that can be developed. They can put on size. They can really show them how to, work him into some of the offensive lineman drills to show him how to properly block. He's got Daniel Parker there, who's a tight end that's extremely proud of being mainly a blocking tight end. So he's got a good mentor there to help him. So if he can develop that, then it's no worries, because he's got the receiving talent. I just think it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic once Caden does come onto campus. What is Levy going to prefer at that point? Experience, and hopefully a guy that's doing okay at blocking, or a guy that, maybe by the time he's 18, 19 years old, he's, a lot more physically imposing and is more ready to take on, defensive linemen, even at that young age, and take snaps from Caden. Maybe not be the main tight end, but it'd be like a 60-40 split, depending on game plan, how often they want to run the ball and in a specific game, what it is, the situation is, what the situation calls for. So it'll be something I think that will be interesting to watch, definitely this season, because we're going to get to see exactly how tight ends get worked into the offense with Daniel Parker and Braden Willis.
The idea I had with the Helms and Caden McIntyre duo, and obviously they're not going to be at this level that I'm about to portray to you guys here, or say the example that I had in my head, because they're young in their careers at the end of the day. But kind of the college version of Caden Helms being the Aaron Hernandez, and Caden McIntyre being a Rob Gronkowski type thing, because Gronk can block and also catch, and Hernandez wasn't the best blocker, but he was dynamic with the ball in his hand and a dynamic route runner before he went crazy and shit, obviously. But like on the field, he was pretty darn good. And that was what I had in in mind is some variety of that. And like I said, obviously they're not going to be at that level right now, but I think they can be a smaller version of that for a couple of years.
Yeah, and I don't know, Jose, I'm glad you brought up the whole Reed Meiska situation, because I do agree. I didn't think about saying that in the beginning. But I don't know if there will be a second tight end in this class. If there is, I feel like it might be a transfer, because just looking through who OU's been recruiting, unless they can somehow get Luke Haas pulled away from Arkansas, which I don't see that likely happening at all. I know for a while, especially with Lincoln Riley at the helm, Deuce Robinson, which he's out of Pinnacle in Phoenix, Arizona, Pinnacle High School, which that's where Spencer Rattler went. I know that he has some interest still with this new staff here. So, but outside of that, and if OU loses out on Reed Meiska, there isn't someone that's available that I feel like they're in a really good spot for. There's Jelani Thurman. Thurman, I think, is more of like a pipe dream. He's from Fairburn, Georgia. I think he's more of a Clemson kind of guy, or and Marcus Dixon, Clemson type of guy. I think OU might just end up with one and maybe a transfer tight end, which is nothing wrong with that after taking Jason Well and Caden Helms last year. But I just feel like that this might be the only tight end that they take in this class. I hope that, Deuce Robinson or Luke Haas becomes available. I just don't see that happening. So it's good to get him. I know he's a 3-star, but again, a guy that plays, it seems like every position. He's basically a man amongst boys at that level that he plays at, and someone that could rise in the rankings over the next upcoming football season. Puts another great year together. There's no reason why he couldn't be a 4-star. Not that that really matters. I just don't want to minimize the fact that he's a 3-star. Just that doesn't mean he doesn't have a lot of potential, because he does. He has the frame and the abilities to do so. So we'll move on to another guy, someone that we've been talking about like for months now, is Caden Green. Caden Green, he's 6'5", 310 pounds in the 2023 class from Lee's Summit, Missouri. Number 92 overall, number 12 offensive tackle. He's a 4-star. We've been talking about Caden for months now. OU is in a great spot with him. And I mentioned on the last video that I didn't think he took his visit to LSU because he hadn't posted any pictures or anything like that. He did end up taking his visit. But what's interesting is his visits to Missouri and Michigan are not supposed to happen. And I saw today, I think it was today as we're recording this, so Tuesday, a bunch of OU crystal balls came in from Michigan insiders, Kansas State insiders, and a few other guys. There's like 7 predictions now. Steve Wiltfong, Alan Trieu is also on OU. Everyone's on OU for Caden Green. He's announcing his commitment on CBS HQ, Sports HQ, on July 8th. It seems like that he's kind of seen everything he needs to see, locking it down. And I think Venables and his staff have probably kind of pressured him, saying, hey, come on, you don't need to take any more visits. You're done. And it seems like that's where it's gone. And this would be a huge get. OU did end up losing out on Bryson Sanders. He announced his commitment to Ole Miss, which isn't overly shocking. I felt like OU had a good shot at him, but they ended up not working out. And we talked about, if OU can go 2 for 3 with Bryson Sanders, Caden Green, and Howland, Luke, I think, is it Luke Howland? I can't remember, from Logan Howland from New Jersey. If they can go 2 for 3, that's a solid class. Well, they lost out Sanders. It seems like Caden Green's moving in a great position right now. So now it's just Howland if OU can land him. Jose, what do you think about the prospect of getting him? I mean, canceling commitments, crystal balls coming to OU. This just screams Oklahoma to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be Oklahoma. And it seems like Josh Bates, his mission is going to be accomplished here in the next couple of weeks. On July 8th, he'll finally get to officially say that he's teammates with the guy that he's been calling the next Trent Williams since day one, it seems like. I feel like he's got to be credited just as much as the staff should be credited for recruiting Caden to Oklahoma. Josh has been every chance that he gets to shout out Caden Green, to be at during visits with any offensive lineman, but it seems like especially with Caden, he takes that opportunity and does what he can to get more big guys and fill up the two planes for Oklahoma. So, you know, Josh definitely deserves a lot of props. But Caden is going to be big, especially when it comes to the move to the SEC. We talk about it all the time, and essentially that's why we're called Two Plane Sports, is because once that move to the SEC is made, we're gonna need very large humans, and they need to be able to move large bodies around on both sides of the ball, defense and offense. So, you know, hopefully it's good news on July 8th. It seems like that's where it's going. I mean, Wilfong has had his crystal ball in since March. I think we talked about it like early on when he was scheduling his official visits, and maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was a different player, but an offensive lineman said, you know, it's just kind of fun to get all these schools, take all these official visits because all the free food. So maybe that's what he was doing. If it was him, if I'm remembering it correctly, and if it was Green, maybe that's what he did. But making his last visit being LSU, and then the recruiting platforms not even giving LSU an opportunity, has got to be good. You know, for the most part, I think whenever we see a kid visit, you know, for example, Reed Mikeson, going back to him, he visited Miami and then canceled the rest of his visits, and it was all but confirmed that he was going to be at Miami, which is where he ended up. Caden, a little different, right? He visits LSU, he cancels the rest of his visits, and it seems to be an Oklahoma lean. Maybe it wasn't like what you said, bro. Maybe the coach, you know, Venables and Coach B just reached out and said, hey, you know, if you're ready to make the commitment, we're ready to get you on board. Let's just wrap it up, and then, you know, hopefully cancel the rest of your visits so we can get so we can feel secure and start adding more talent to the offensive line. Because I still firmly believe that they're aiming to get a fully new stock of offensive linemen. You know, two tackles, two guards, and a center. We've got the center. It looks like we're about to get the first tackle, and we still have a chance of Peyton Kirkland. You know, so we've got Howland and Kirkland still, you know, with the possibility of joining this class, and maybe they'll add in a guard over the next few months here to the recruiting cycle.
Yeah, and I'll just say one thing before Brandon goes. You know, Cade McIntyre went and took a visit to Iowa and realized Oklahoma's home, and he canceled everything else and announced his commitment. So that's just something I see.
Canceling visits is always a good sign, especially when your school is in the lead. You love to see it. I was going to bring up Peyton Kirkland as another guy that hopefully Josh Bates is going to do his best to bring in too, because the Caden Green thing, and again, a lot can happen in sports. It's a crazy thing, and this kid still has, at the end of the day, almost a month since we're recording this to, you know, change his mind or whatever. But at the moment, yeah, you do feel good, but you can't count your chickens before they hatch, as they say, stuff like that. But Caden Green, he was the guy, according to Parker Thune, that's said the best part about all these official visits is all the free food. So you love to see a lineman that likes to throw down, build those large humans, as you said. But there's a reason this man's in the top 100 overall and top 15 for tackles. He's got the perfect size. He is right around that Trent Williams size, 6'5", 310. So there's a comparison there. He's very athletic. He's the first guy that, when we were watching his tape, we first talked about him months ago at this point. He's the first guy that immediately, when I was watching the film with him, was like, man, this literally looks like Big Mike in the movie The Blind Side. Like, he's just mauling kids. He's a big kid, man, but he moves well, and he can, like I said, there's a reason he's top 100 overall, in top 15 for tackles in the entire country. This would be arguably one of the biggest gets of the Venables era so far, in my opinion. And maybe it's just because I value the position so much, and the just anywhere on the offensive line. But I mean, he's definitely, in my opinion, top 10 at least for as far as commits under the Venables era. If it does happen again, we can't count our chickens before they hatch. But I mean, yeah, I feel pretty darn good about it, and hopefully we can bring Peyton Kirkland on board as well.
Yeah, and when I said 2 for 3, talking about Logan Howland, Peyton Kirkland just slipped my mind. But yeah, you think about Josh Bates, Caden Green, Peyton Kirkland, and potentially Logan Howland. That's a quite a four offensive lineman haul in a recruiting class. That's way better than I was expecting. I mean, it seems like everything's really starting to fall into place, and I think July is going to be a really fun month for Oklahoma. All right, so moving on to the other side of the ball, another recent visitor, Colton Vasek. We talked about him about, I don't know, last week, but he took a visit to Oklahoma. He's 6'6", 230 pounds. He plays at Westlake High School in Austin, Texas. 2023, he's an edge player, 4-star, number 175 overall, number 20 edge player of the class. The 3rd of June, he took his official visit to Clemson. The 10th, he went to Oklahoma. 17th, to Oregon, and then actually, as we're recording this right now, he's on his Texas official visit, which is the 14th. So a middle of the week visit to Texas, and then he's visiting Oregon this coming weekend. As you're watching this, he's a pretty athletic guy. His dad played at the University of Texas, but he had 10 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, 56 tackles. Great year. Westlake is one of the best high schools in the state of Texas, playing at a great level. I get the feeling, and I think maybe it was just Jose and I when we recorded this, because Brandon, I think you weren't on, but we were talking about Colton we didn't get the feeling that Texas, even though his dad went there and it's in his backyard, it seems like he's looking to go elsewhere. I know Texas Tech's in his top 5, but I don't really consider them as a true contender in this recruitment. I think it's more he just wanted 5 and he just threw Tech on there. I get the feeling that Texas, while it's still there, he could end up being a Longhorn. I don't feel like they're overly strong. And then I get the feeling that Oregon can do a really good job at recruiting him, but I just think it's going to be too far away. I think it's OU Clemson. It's the same kind of, for the most part, the same philosophies, same staff, and same coaching, mantra and pedigree that between the two schools, obviously with Venables being with Sweeney for so long. It seemed like his visit went very well with Oklahoma. Coach Chavis was sitting there at the airport to pick him up when he flew in. I think the visit went extremely well. While his visit to Texas is happening right now, and then he's got a visit to Oregon coming up this weekend, a lot of things can happen, but I feel pretty solid with him. What do you think, Brandon?
I mean, I like that you don't feel like Texas is a in the equation or whatever, but like I feel like you can never discount them in this instance, just because if his dad played there. This kid had to have been born raised a Texas fan. His dad being an alum of the school, it literally being in his backyard. This kid probably had no choice but to watch Texas football his whole life growing up, and likely that means he's going to Red River games wearing that burnt orange, and likely he's hooking horns and hating OU and stuff like that for most of his life. And that's something that I think will always be there a little bit until he does commit somewhere. Just that his whole growing up, and his dad, I imagine, obviously I don't know these people, them at all, but like his dad, he couldn't be happy with. I mean, he's obviously not going to like hate his kid or whatever, tell him not to go there or, things of that nature. But like, I imagine when Colton Vasek comes home and goes, "Dad, man, Oklahoma, I feel good about them." He wasn't like, "Hell yeah, bud, boomer." Like, you know what I mean? That probably never came out of his mouth. So like, you can never discount, in my opinion, that just all of that stuff that he grew up around and doing, and his dad being, he probably was a 1-year-old wearing Texas onesies and all that stuff. Just, you never know. Texas is still going to scare me in this process just because of all of that. But the player himself, hard not to get super excited about. 6'6", 240 at defensive end. You mentioned the 10 sacks, but 16 tackles for loss. He had 2 forced fumbles, a pass breakup, 56 overall tackles. That's very athletic. That is actually Jason Taylor's size to a T, who I think is one of the greatest defensive ends of all time. Might be because I'm a Dolphin, but like statistically, he is too. He's that guy. If he could be the next Jason Taylor and be a Sooner, I'm okay with it. Especially like I want him to commit to Oklahoma just so he can tell his dad, like, I wish I could be there when he does this, and just like his dad's gonna cry.
Yeah, that's very possible. I I mentioned it whenever we talked about it whenever we talked about it last time. I feel like we got to watch out for Oregon here. They're doing really well with recruiting. You know, what if it's because Lanning is there and it's hard? I mean, you can't really say Lanning is a bad defensive mind right now. He just came off of winning a national championship, and whatever criticism people want to throw out there, Kirby was the leader of the defense at the end of the day. Lanning still had a lot to do with the game planning with Kirby Smart, and they ended up winning. Like that's just a matter of fact. And if it's not the game, the defensive mind, and it is a young, very hyped up coach right now, Nike backs him. Like there's there's two reasons why a player may want to go there. So I think that Oregon's got to be maybe the dark horse of this recruitment right now. It wouldn't surprise me if post the Oregon visit, some sort of maybe an Oregon beat writer puts out a crystal ball at like a 5 confidence, just because the guy might be on that post visit high that we talk about all the time, which I think at that point will be a little bit more intimidating for the Sooners. And right now, I think Oklahoma is in a good position to be trying to battle Texas for that commitment. I think Brandon brought up a good point that we didn't mention last time. Like, and I guess we didn't give much credence to last time, is he's growing up a fan. It's kind of like Lebbeus Overton, right? His dad may have gone to Oklahoma, but the fact that he grew up in College Station in regards to Lebbeus is probably something that really resonated with him during his recruitment. And maybe money was a thing. Who cares at this point? The fact that he grew up on campus basically probably did a lot for him. And Colton might be the same. Like Brandon said, he's probably gone to Red River games. He's gone to to Texas games and and Burnt Orange. He's been put hook 'em horns. Everything. Been just pretty much a Texas fan for the last 17, 18 years of his life. And I think that Oklahoma being in there, I think that.
Hey, Jose, I think your mic came unplugged. You might.
We lost
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. So I think that the Texas fans should be worried, right? A lifelong Texas Longhorn fan probably would not put Oklahoma there if it wasn't for like the fact that these coaches can develop really good defensive line talent, and it's proven. Maybe not at Oklahoma, but it's proven elsewhere, and now they are at Oklahoma. So, Oklahoma, I don't think we're the leader by any means, but I definitely think that if it comes down to 3 schools, it's going to be between Oklahoma, Texas, and Oregon. Texas, like Brandon said, lifelong fan. He lives in Austin with his family, and they've got the NIL money that Sark is more than happy to throw around if necessary. Oregon, NIL money, and a young, really hyped up defensive mind that just came off a national championship. But Oklahoma, it's not like Oklahoma's losing in that regards at any means. Oklahoma still has NIL opportunities with being able to sell your jerseys with your name on them. Oklahoma's doing everything they can to make sure that these kids get the money that they're looking for. And you've got a defensive head coach who's put up so many top 10 defenses, a lot of top 3 defenses for over 20 years. You've got a defensive line coach that has developed NFL talent, and a first round talent, not just okay NFL talent, but first round talent. Like these guys have proven that they can get their players paid post college. So it's definitely going to be a battle to all the way up until the end. Once his commitment date comes out, I think that's when he'll have a decision made, and we'll see a lot more crystal balls come out for whatever school will end up getting him.
Yeah, I know maybe I'm being too optimistic and maybe I'm discounting Texas. I do agree. I mean, growing up a fan, being right down the road, being in the same city, that has to play a factor. But also maybe his dad is under the impression, like, while I went there and, Texas was a lot better, then in, the early 2000s and whatnot. Maybe it's just his dad realizes that the instability, the culture, the pressure, it's just not great at Texas right now. And he might realize that, going to Oregon, going to Oklahoma, going to Clemson might be a better opportunity for me, even though it might pain him to say Oklahoma. The staff, I mean, I'm biased, of course, but I think the staff at Oklahoma's head and shoulders above them. I mean, when you think about Todd Bates and Chavis, I mean, I feel like I'd take them 10 out of 10 times versus Texas's defensive line and Ed, and ends coach. So maybe that'll be it. It'll be interesting to see after his visit this weekend if there's a rush of crystal balls in favor to one school. We'll get maybe more of a feeling after that. But it seemed like OU did as best as they could, and they put themselves in a fighting position to have a fighting chance, to land his commitment. And that's all you can ask for at the end of the day, because you're not going to land everyone. But getting a kid like him on campus out of, Austin, Texas, that has to say something. We'll move on to the final guy we're going to be talking about. And this is someone that's popped up on our radar over the last 2 or 3 weeks, maybe about a month. Dalen Smothers, 5'11", 182-pound running back from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a 2023 4-star, number 218 overall, and the number 9 running back in the class. He came for the Champ U barbecue. It seemed like it went really well. Just a little more background on him. He's a terrific running back, 1,700 yards, 30 touchdowns. Just a hell of a running back. And it seems like OU really put themselves in a great position to land his commitment. Someone that they offered, I think they offered in the month of May to Oklahoma. It's March. Sorry, March 20th, came out for June 3rd. So he's now going to be taking his official visit this coming weekend to NC State. That's the in-state school. It seems like they're the biggest threat. Florida State and Penn State are still looming. Florida State does have a crystal ball, but I don't really, buy into that. I think it's going to be, I think after this weekend, he might be another guy that you'll see some crystal balls come in favor of him, whether it's NC State or Oklahoma. I feel like if the visit goes okay and whatever, it's NC State, I could see him hopping on board here pretty soon to secure his spot. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that Oklahoma, the coaching should help with getting him to at least be in Oklahoma lane. I guess it would all depend on what the kid is looking for. Like you said, he is taking his visit to NC State this weekend. So if he just wants to stay really close to home, then NC State is probably going to secure his commitment this weekend. If it's if being close to home isn't something that's super important to the guy, then I think Oklahoma's got to be in the driver's seat here. Maybe the other only school that could be in contention to get him is Penn State. And it's because I'm not super familiar with the running back coach, but they do produce a pretty good running backs. Saquon Barkley came out of there, and then he I was just looking at the running backs coach for Penn State. He's committed, or he has recruited pretty well. In 2021, he got a 5-star, and he got 2 5-stars. Nick Singleton and Alex Burkmeyer. I'm not really familiar with him, but 5 stars at the end of the day coming out of high school. The guy knows how to recruit, so I feel like they could definitely be a threat. But it's it was rumored that Adrian Peterson is helping DeMarco with recruiting this guy. And I said it the first time we talked about it. If that's true, how can you say no to one of the best running backs of all time, not just in college or in pro, not just in college, but also at the pro level? And then DeMarco Murray wasn't too shabby at the pros, and he is definitely a really good running back at the college level. So, you would have, if Adrian Peterson is going to be part of your recruitment, that's got to be saying something. Like the coaching staff sees you as priority, number one, if not, and maybe not number one, but type A priority, where you're getting some special treatment to get a legend like Adrian Peterson to help out and getting you on campus and helping you understand what it is to be a Sooner and a running back for Oklahoma. So hopefully things are going well after this weekend, where again, I think that it's the summertime, right? These kids get a lot more time to think. They get a lot more time to make visits. We're going to start seeing crystal balls come after a lot of these official visits. And hopefully after this one, we see 1 or 2 come out in favor to Oklahoma. And I would preferably love to see an NC State insider say it's Oklahoma. When it's them, like opposing schools insider or Wiltfong, I think that's when I feel the most secure. Not that I don't trust Thune or Drum, but obviously there's a bias there. and they can get it wrong because of that bias. I think they're more likely to get it wrong because of that bias. And I think him and Caleb Hicks, right, would be an awesome duo to bring in, especially after getting the 2 guys that we did in this last class.
The running back room in general to me is very interesting, and in the recruitment process, it's probably the most interesting one to follow for Sooner fans, because I think we're all still waiting. I know we just got Chapman McCown. We don't really know if that's a scholarship offer, if that's a walk-on. Has that been released yet? Do we know yet?
He said he's a preferred walk-on, but then the details of his scholarship he's keeping between him and Venables. So I'm not really sure.
Okay, so it's an interesting situation. But yeah, you mentioned Caleb Hicks. Oklahoma is still in some sort of running at least top 5, because Richard Young used an official visit for Oklahoma, and you only get 5 of those. So in my opinion, he's guaranteed top 5. So you're not totally out of that one yet. Dylan Edwards is a recruitment process that we're going to be watching for a long time. Then now Dalen Smiller is adding to it. Oklahoma's going to get one of those 4 for sure. Hopefully 2. But, one for sure. Caleb Hicks, probably the one that looks that we're the most comfortable with at the moment. But Dalen Smillers is a hell of an athlete, as Brett mentioned. He's got great size. I absolutely agree with Jose's take that as far as coaching goes and things of that nature, Oklahoma has the advantage. DeMarco Murray was NFL leading rusher of the year once. Adrian Peterson obviously is Adrian Peterson, and he's not a coach, but if he's in the process, that's pretty good. Whose dog is that? Is that mine? I didn't think Rico's going wild.
No, that's Jose's.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's okay. But yeah, I mean, Oklahoma has the lead there in coaching. North Carolina State obviously has the proximity battle, but it's just an interesting position group, and I'm ready to see how these dominoes fall on these running backs. I think once we get one, we'll be feeling better, but one of the 4 is going to commit to Oklahoma.
I'm liking Dalen Smothers and Caleb Hicks. Dylan Edwards, I'm done trying to guess what his recruitment's going to be. If he joins, great. If not, it doesn't matter. I mean, because OU is going to take two scholarship running backs, and once one commits, the second one's going to hop on board really fast to lock in their spot. So
I agree. Yeah, we just got to get that first one to whoever it is to lock in.
Yeah, and I think so. Like you said, it's hard to turn away Adrian Peterson and DeMarco Murray, both all-time great Sooners, great pro, careers in the pros. I feel really good. NC State, the only reason why NC State would win out in his recruitment is just the proximity to home. But he's got to know Oklahoma's going to put him on the biggest stage of college football. All the NFL teams are going to have their eyes on Oklahoma. So someone that we're going to keep an eye on, definitely someone we'll be watching the crystal balls on 247, on 3, all that other stuff, just to see what ends up happening. But that's all I've got for this episode as far as recruiting goes. I'm sure we're going to have some great stuff coming up on Friday as well. Brandon, do you have an indie video challenge for the people?
I do, and it's a relatively fun one. So we're losing Jose for a couple weeks. This is his last episode. He's getting married. He's a special guy he's a special guy in the show to a lot of you. He's a special guy in our hearts. We're going to miss him. So you're going to have to, the end of video challenge, either congratulate him or he doesn't get married till Saturday. It's not too late. One or the other, drop him below, run away, far away, or congratulations. Either one will suffice. But yeah, we're gonna miss him on the show for sure. So either congratulate him or tell him to run for the hills.
Yeah, he needs a couple week hiatus so he can rest up before July gets here. Whenever all these commitments come in, he gets to join the married club. That means 2/3 of us are going to be married on this show. Brandon's going to keep holding out for the people, unless he runs for the hills. That can always happen too.
Could always happen.
Yeah,
depends what the comments say.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be a couple weeks. So this be Brandon and I holding it down till the last. What was it like? I think July 1st will be the first time you're on again, right?
Also,
I'll
Carly
be back in July.
Carly, if you're watching / listening, I am joking. Like mostly.
Mostly. So made it this far. Help us out. Subscribe, like the video, turn the notification bell, comment on the video. Let us know what you think on all these commitments. Do Brandon's in a video challenge. Congratulate Jose. Tell him to run for the hills, or if you have some other idea, I'm sure there's something out there. So let us know. Find us on our social medias: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. Everything's linked down below. And we will catch you guys on Friday for a dynamic duo of Brandon and I. See you guys.